Hi, kind of afternoon, everyone. My name is Adnan, and thanks for this opportunity from NG Commerce. Since we are all locked down, so I think it's a good opportunity to make the most use of it and try and educate people around cybersecurity or security. So I won't go into the deep, believe me, I'll just keep it very high level. And the thing I want to make sure when you go from here, you have those basic steps and basics knowledge which you can apply in your regular uh, life or business, depending. So I may be asking some question in the chat box, but just for to understand, what kind of business or what kind of tool and technology you're using it. So that would help me. I hope if I'll be able to go and check in the chat. So that's how I want to start this and kind of make it a little bit interactive. And maybe if there are any question we can take in the end of this slide deck, or you can ask in the chat. So again, going back, since we are all locked down and there's a lot of push, and um, and the reason is we all working from home, and company who would have never thought about working from home, now they're being forced, whether it's a employee company or 50,000 or 100,000. You look in the news, this has nobody ever thought about it. We know that people uh, talk about workforce, remote workforce, digital workplace, but all of a sudden, within this short period of time, no one imagined that, and that leads to so many connecting dots, not about cultural shift, but also challenges with the technology. So that's we'll look into that, how it's been happening and why attacker or actor or the bad guys want to take the opportunity and cause damage, and what you can do to protect yourself, your data, your employer, your company, even if you're individual, if even it's your personal data. So there are a lot of awareness needs to be needed, a lot of action you can take. And these are not so protected, the basic stuff you really can apply and at least get to the next level where you can protect your privacy in the data. So a little about myself, like I said before, I started this I mentor cloud. There is a cloud is type of mistake, but that's more training and also project-based consulting. I've been in IT for 20 plus years, been work for large financials, design a lot of architecture, engineering, but on the business side of it, always see a value where I can educate and help the business to fill those gaps missing in the technology. So let's move on. So this is something I was able to pull this report a couple of days ago, that before COVID-19, it says based on the report, if you go on the Google or Forbes, and one of us from another side, that 29% of the Americans were able to work from home. That's according to Forbes. And that one means that's how the companies putting their employees to work from home. And this is how you design your network, your technology, and all that stuff. I think I do have, let me go back if there is a question, something.
Yeah. I just commented that I'm amazed at that 99% of workers would choose to work remotely. I commented that that's kind of incredible.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, the people were given the choice, right? So, and then it will help us to build the conversation to the next level, because if you look at a bigger picture, all the companies, it's a jump 29%, and then everyone is now forced. Like even it is. I mean, if they would now, there's no choice, but still people are working from home regardless. So, as when I go a little bit on technology side, there's no infrastructure has been designed and challenges, and I'll go into that. What are the challenges? And what can be done? Of course, that's not going to be an ideal state. You can just go and turn the switch off or on to get to that state. That's not going to happen. But again, you can get to the next level and every business can apply and at least to improve and work on that process. And this is going to be happening for the next few months. That's what we see in the news. It's not going to change next week or 2 weeks. We know that. That's what's going in the news. Let me just put the chat on the side. So that's I want to bring up. I mean, you can always go back, look it up, these breaches. Just wanted to give you some education around that. There are so many. There's a list of top 10 threats of this century or something. So I pulled the ones which was bigger in numbers, or maybe, just as I said, eBay, Equifax, Capital Ones. This is where you're in my data. I'm concerned about it. So you are, because of my credit card information. And when you open those credit cards, you have your socials and all that stuff. So that's not good. And last I read one report month ago, that's not there in the list, 143 million user data hacked because if somebody did not encrypt the data on Amazon storage. So, those things happens because of some ignorance, somebody's not paying enough attention, not applying those security policies. And guess what? End user is the victim all the time, and then I get sold on dark web, on all those site people do a business, and then end of the day, end user is affected, whether it's your personal data, your health data, your medical records and all that. So that's not good. And now why it is a problem, because I would not be surprised a couple of weeks later, or if you just, I see it coming. In few weeks, there will be more breaches happening. And why? We'll look into that. So, so that's the traditional model. And this is where I want to ask you about the people who are attending. What kind of a network you have? Do you host or put everything in the cloud? Or do you have more or less the same setup in your office, in your home office, or at your workplace? Just type yes or no. There's no right and wrong answer, because if you work for a 50 user company, you may have, I've seen those environments. If you go to a large bank or financials, it's totally different, super duper secure physical access, but they also get the breach, and those breaches are very intense, like 100 million user data gets stolen. So those kind of breaches happen, but in this kind of office, it won't happen. So yeah, so I'm getting all your chat. We use cloud and everything, right? So I want to give you, a little bit graphical environment here, and that's what it typically works in your small data center, small office, and then we go, how does it things changes in the cloud. So basically, the one in the blue, you say it's a cloud, and then you have a firewall, and then you have this file folder. I put it is like your file server, your Windows server, your backup, and everything. But what happens in a typical physical environment where you do not have cloud? So of course today pretty much everyone has cloud. But if you go back 5-10 years ago, when these breaches were not happening, because everyone there was on premises, a small server room, what you call it, small data center. So your breach was the physical layer, not the logical or not the internet layer. Somebody wanted to hack or wanted to break the door physically, or turn off your CCTV, cut the wire, those kind of physical access was important. That was the main thing. And then somebody can go in there and steal the data. And if you're not in an e-commerce business, if you're not that kind of a business, if you're like a regular business, retail, manufacturing, whatever, if your business do not run 24/7 operations, whichever, so that kind of business, you basically, what you do is turn off the server, and then you leave it, but still you leave your internet turned on because your firewall. So you have that kind of, okay, now I have a firewall, I have some security in place. Guess what, if something happens, my machine is shut down and all that, and you're doing the backup and all that. And I can go in on the pros and cons for the backups and everything. But again, let's stick to this. Then that's what I'm trying to say, is the physically somebody has to access, and then from there somebody can steal the data. And that's a typical thing, and only traffic which is allowed in these kind of setup. And it also kind of resemble the data center, where the companies have cloud and on-premises, which is called a hybrid. But when you have the data in some banks, their server do not even talk at all to the internet. So that's kind of thing. In this example, one user is accessing, it could be me, anybody else on the small businesses. They have full access to the internet, but at the same time, they're blocking with their policies and not allowing anything from these servers uploading to the internet. So it's a very basic model. Now, if you look at in the next slide, it's on cloud. Now we all use cloud, every one of us, and we've been using it pretty much, I would say, last 20 years in terms of our email, like Gmail, Yahoo. So this is how it got started 20 years ago from the email stuff. And then now we use it for everything. You're storing our files, you're storing our pictures, you name it, everything, even our Android phones and contacts and everything is in the cloud, because it's so easy. If I replace my phone, I just put my Google ID on the next other phone and all contacts are there. So I'm fully synced. But that's the thing where it changes when it comes to the business. And the common thing, if I were to say in the cloud, is we only need one thing. And that one thing is what? Our identity. So identity is very important, because in internet model, your identity is just like your passport. Because with this passport, you can travel anywhere in the world. Same applies here. With your identity, you can go to Google, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. You have one identity pretty much. You don't keep multiple email addresses. Every platform allows you, hey, you want to use an email address, you want to use a Google ID or Facebook, whichever. And we use just one identity for ease of use, for single sign-on, and we get access to whatever we want, LinkedIn, Google, as I said, Facebook, whatever it is. So that's what we have. But if I go back here, that does not apply. So that's the significant, and that's the huge change from this model to the cloud, because here my identity does not work at all. I have to be there physically, or I have to VPN to my office, and then I get access to my servers and files. But again, the nature of the world we live in, we need our data 24/7. The business has changed. So that's what is driving. And then now we are into this type of model where even my Chromebook, I have to sign into the cloud and use it. Even kids at the school, they sign in with the Chromebook. Like, and the video conferencing and audio conferencing we are using today is all cloud-based. So of course, there are so many benefits. So the point is that how do I go to the next level? I know that I wanna use it. I'll keep using it. It's good for my business. It makes me more productive. I don't have to worry about backing up and restore and those kind of things. Nobody wants to go back to that, because you lose your focus, you lose your concentration. You want to focus on your business. So how do I go to the next level? So I want to give you a couple more. For example, that's the Google is an example here where you have this identity, and same thing here. You have all these software as a service, like there's like G Suite, Box, Office 365, Salesforce. So you have these multiple platform, which is either for your online cloud storage, which is either for your sales, or maybe your change management, ticketing, banking, you name it. Some of them is still not there, but that's the cloud model. Again, you just need one identity to access all of them, right? So that's another example. And I want to share one more example along the same lines. So yeah, so basically that was example. And then what identities, that's what I'm talking about, right? So in this, how do we do, and what am I gonna do to make sure I stay protected? So I want to go a little bit, but again, I'm gonna just type me in the chat. Have you heard the word encryption before? Yes and no? Yes. Okay. You heard it. Give me a second. Okay. So, and do you know about? Have you heard data at rest? Encryption in transit? Okay, so I'll be honest. I'll be very high level because these I don't want to go into the weeds because it gets very technical. But again, the idea here is that whenever you're putting your data in the cloud, I'm not sure about the box, but again, wherever there are free services, usually they do not have encryption in the cloud. For example, because I pretty much use Office 365 most of the time and Outlook, maybe Google, but Google have two offerings. One is free, like live.com, and Office 365 is paid. Google is free, Google Drive, but they do have Google Suite or G Suite, which is for businesses. It could be a one person or 5,000 or 50 or whatever. So this is where things change. Is if you go and read, they tells you, because this is what you're paying for, what data encryption, because there are different level of encryption. One is, let's say if I send you a message in iPhone, this is an iMessage. So if I'm sending you a message through iMessages, it's blue. And if I'm sending to you at the recipient, so that message going over the wireless through the Verizon network, whichever, but end to end, it's encrypted. Nobody can read my message because even in the air, it is encrypted, and that's what Apple is known for. But if the recipient does not have iMessage and other mobile platform, Android-based, it may not be encrypted. It is clear text. Same thing applies on the WhatsApp. You might have heard encryptions, and you might have seen those things. So this is end-to-end encryption. Same thing, if I'm putting my data drag and drop for Picasa or something in the cloud, probably they are not secure. So that data you're putting in the cloud, you got to make sure whether it's your personal data, depending, is it your yearly text file, and you say, hey, I don't want to back it up at home because what if the hard drive crashes? I'm going to lose that. You drag and drop or put in the Google Drive. So question is that Google Drive is secured in the cloud? Mean it is providing the encryption, because those data centers, they keep changing the hard drive, like we do shredding of our bills every day, because hard drives go corrupt. Then they have thousands of millions of hard drives. So if it's not encrypted, go read it, because business subscription, they provide all encryption. So your sensitive data got to be put in the cloud where they have encryption address. Means your encryption address is your hard drive is encrypted. Basically, if I have MacBook, it comes by default. If I have a Windows, I want to make sure, because if I'm carrying my notebook and if it gets stolen and somebody gets access to it, they won't be able to, even they take out the hard drive, they won't able to access my data. So that same concept applies in the cloud. So that's one part of it. Second, what I want to explain is encryption. I explained encryption at rest, but encryption in the transit. So for example, if I'm sending you an email, and let's say Gmail to Gmail or Yahoo, whatever. So let me put this, yeah, if you do not have a mortgage or rent, but if you've been through credit card processing, a bank loan and mortgage, I'm sure the email you get from the bank, they want you to click on a link, and when you go to that link and you put your password, and it's a different interface, you get access to it. It means the bank wants you to log on to their portal and then upload your financial statement, mortgage documents and everything onto their server. You would have never seen a bank sending you these documents as an attachment. Even they want you to do the digital signature, they want you to log on to their portal. It means they are liable for this, to providing the security. That's why they want you to go to their portal, sign in, and they make sure encryption in the transit whenever you're doing this processing and everything is there. So that's the encryption. One of the example you can in the transit, because still you're working with the web page. So that's in the transit, that's on the wire. So basically that's the idea, encryption, they do it. So if they don't, you can sue them. And they take their responsibility, being that regulatory compliant, to give you those options as an end user, because that's not your responsibility, that's a bank. So that's one of the example. I know it's complicated, but the best example or easiest example is an email. If I send you an email, not necessarily my email going to you is secured. What it means, end-to-end encryption. And there are many ways to do it. As I said before, if you go to Google and check it out, they do offer in the business, like in Office 365, they do have encryption. What it does, end-to-end encryption. So if somebody get access to it, they won't be able to read that. So this is where it really make a difference. Now, how things are going to be changing and more opportunity for attackers, will come to that. Because if you look at this picture and the previous one or this one, now people are being told, and of course that's the nature or the situation we have. We all have remote work. So what it means, when you're working remotely, one of the things is that, and it also depends on the size of the business. So as I said before, if I'm a small, medium size, and I'll tell you, size in sometimes size really doesn't matter too. So let's say if you have a 50 user company, for example, and you do not give devices to your user, and they have their own devices. Again, but that is not acceptable for somebody who works for a law firm, who works for a mortgage, who works for a bank. Take an example. If you go to a bank, the people on the retail banking, if they are told to work from home, and if they do not have a company assigned laptop, that's a problem, because these devices are unmanaged devices. And if they use their home devices, who knows what kind of viruses they have? They are not patched. Because the way it works in any company where they have the IT and all that, they have a standard procedure. Like if the Tesla is making the car, Tesla have standards for their car, their engine, the consumption, the body, the shape, the color, whatever, right? They follow the whole pipeline, the assembly line and everything. Same thing applies in any industry. So they follow the procedures because they control it. Same thing, if the company provides these devices to their employee to work from home, they're still monitoring, because employees log onto the VPN or go through the internet, they have secure certificates, so they have the full inventory, and they know each and every device. If it's not patched, if it's not up to date, if the software is missing or not upgraded, they will quarantine the device automatically and bring it back to the same level where it meets the IT health standards for the device. But as I said, 29% to 99% remote work has changed. These these business never thought of. So now this is the gap, right? And how they're gonna do it? Of course, it's not gonna happen, and there will be more breaches and attacks, and this thing we'll see. But there are, like, they are working on it, some best practices, but this is a huge gap. So whether you're small business or large business, a small firm of 50 law firms require the same stuff, and they have to be compliant because of the industry they work in, right? If there's a company with 200 users and they do not need to be compliant or manufacturing, they would not care. But again, the data is there on the user's devices. So that's challenging. How to deal with that? Of course, there is not going to be, as I said before, switch to change it. But again, there are some actions, some items can be, which I'll walk you through, share what are those. So that's the challenge, because and unmanaged devices, if I can go on, like, it can be mobile devices, it can be your laptops and everything. And then when you're accessing, so I give you an example. If I have my company's email, I can easily copy paste. For regulatory environment, you're not even allowed to that. You are not even sometime able to forward those emails. So you lose all those control. Those are the thing. And also, let's leave that large firms. Let's talk about small businesses or whichever. You might have heard ransomware. This was very common 6 months, 8 months ago. They were asking some ransom money, and then they were like, okay, I got all your data, there was some manufacturing company, whichever company had been paying 10,000 to 100,000 to those bad actors or attackers because they penetrating the system. How did they do it? Is because of social engineering. They have been sending phishing email. I'm sure you must have heard of phish email. If not, let me know in the chat. I can explain. But that email is you're phished, and then they watch your activity literally for a week, for a month, even 2, and then they learn your environment. They just need one user, and from there they keep monitoring and watching, and they find who the user environment may have admin level access. And once they do it, they start collecting the data slowly, and 2 months, 3 months later, guess what? You get an email, you ignore it. You get another email, you ignore it, and they say, hey, okay, let me delete some file. And then, oh, something happened. And then IT and security kind of involved, and then it's too late. So, and it's still, I mean, there is no, I can say you have to be very vigilant, you have to have IT people, but still it's not something you can just go, or like COVID-19, there's no vaccination for that, because social engineering people will be phished. So a lot of awareness is required to the end user, how to figure it out, not to click every email. So that's where the ransomware is. And then they encrypt the data, even you do not have access to data, and they say, okay, we deleted it. So it's been happening. So that's why it's a risk whenever you have unmanaged devices. Even your personal computer at home, it's not a company home. If you are phished and you are compromised, your text document, your personal file, your family pictures, whatever you name it, so that can also be compromised. So this is where you might be thinking, okay, what controls do I need? How do I do that? What are the best practices? So I'll share in a moment. So any questions so far? Just go ahead and type in the chat box if you have. So people say they heard about a phishing email. Okay, so do you use anything on top of the password? So whenever, let's say, you access your email on Gmail or whichever platform, do you just use your email ID and password, or do you use any kind of extra layer of security? Do you know anything that there is something more than a password? Just password. Okay. Okay, so that's definitely going to help you. Okay, so what happens before I go to that? What happens is because I come from a different background in IT. I've been in applications, infrastructure, and for the last few years, pretty much heavily focused on security, like governance, compliance, and thought process around that. What other controls can be implemented and help the businesses? I'm very technical at one side, but also want to make sure it brings an add value, even when I'm doing a business thing, or even those control when I'm not doing business and personal user, who I am myself, my family, those kind of things. So everyone has that. So how do we do that and implement those control when you are by yourself or you are into a business? And how do we make it, some of the controls you want to make it as your lifestyle, because there is no room for that, then you want to ignore it. Because if that something happens, as I gave you an example, ransomware, damage is very significant, whether it's your company or whether it's yourself, because you end up losing all your personal data for the last 10 years. Imagine if you have a hard drive and you're using your MacBook or whatever, or your Windows computer, and you have your tax documents and all these things at your home office, whatever. So you don't want to lose that. That's those smart or bad guys, they know about it, and that's why they demand for this for the money, depending how valuable the data is. So this is very important. So something, I'm going to go to the next slide, and then I will share what are some controls available. So I put it all together in a list. So there are some symptoms and there are some protections. So symptom is that slowing down of a computer. We know that it's always going to be a virus. Somebody did something in my computer, shared computer and all that. But again, guess what? You got to be careful about it, because that's today when we say slowing down your computer, not necessarily the virus. There could be more than that. So you got to be on top of that. Very, very, take it seriously. Just don't ignore it, because if it's your work-related computer, it's not for your kids, where you think it's a sensitive data. Even your kids' computer can infect it, and can infect whole network. So put a firewall basically at home, and make sure, or just Google it, some of the basic steps. But again, I'll go back to the identity piece here again. But these are symptoms: slowing down of your computer. You have a strange pop-up which you have never seen. So that's another thing. Make sure do not put all those browser add-ons in Chrome and Firefox. Do not, because until you do not trust, or unless you do not know that add-on, or they're like, we get in Chrome for Facebook or whatever. As long as there's trusted publisher, because they're Facebook. But what if the publisher is not Facebook, it's somebody else? So your password, when you're typing it might be somebody's watching your key logs, and this is how you get hacked. So those are the things you gotta be, not put everything on your computer. Make sure it comes from the right and trusted resource, and you are using go Google it, figure out what are the best or good antivirus available, use that. And then sometimes you notice any suspicious thing that on your screen, if the cursor is moving and you are just so those are things you have to be basic, awareness of why this cursor is having some motion while I'm watching the Netflix or whatever. So those kind of things, you have to be vigilant and careful about that. Always look for some unknown programs. There are even antivirus will tell you when they do the scanning. So these are the vulnerabilities, basically unknown programs, add-ons. These are always those things when you go to a website and another browser opens automatically and say you're this compromised, pay us this money and we'll fix your computer. It means you're already being breached. So shut down the computer, unplug the network cables, and then boot it up, and make sure Wi-Fi is disabled at that point. So make sure this is the best way, just to disconnect from the network ASAP right away. And then you can always boot it up, run the antivirus, take you to the computer shop, whatever, or call somebody for IT support or whatever it is. But you got to make sure you're disconnected, because that's the thing, that's the stop line. Because whatever has gone, whatever have happened, now you stop and put the barrier for somebody not to, look into the system, or there may be some file or some program is running, may not be able to send the data to the bad actor through the cloud and all that. So that's the best approach, or the very first approach you want to do it. Same, suspicious phishing email. I do get a lot. Everyone does. From the bank, hey, your bank password, we have changed this policy. Look and feel exactly the same. Like, I would not be surprised people start saying phishing. And I've read an article. I just don't know the details, but the headline was, there is an increase of 660%. Okay, so I'll answer that question. So 660% increase in the attack already. 660. Unbelievable. And the COVID-19 phishing email. So if you see those COVID-19, we have to be very careful. Do not click all those emails. Make sure you mouse over on the link, and when you read that, you'll figure out it's coming from New Jersey official covid.com. Let's say governors and all, they're putting those URL. If not, yes. If not, then you have to be otherwise deleted, because if you're not inquired why they're sending it, yeah, that's another approach. Do not click, just watch the news and go yourself to the website, Google it and figure it out. Why would somebody be sending you an email without you requesting? So that's absolutely delete it. If you're in your Outlook, shift delete it. It means it will just not go to a deleted folder, if you just permanently delete it. If you have your Microsoft Outlook, shift delete it. Otherwise, if you have cloud, Gmail, whatever, just delete it. Now, so shutting down a computer, right? But you can shut it down, but let's say if you have a little bit basic knowledge, So shutting down a computer, perfect. And at the same time, you have your cell phone, so you can do some Google search, YouTube, whatever, you know, and whenever you want to bring that computer back online, make sure disconnected, because you want to get that computer fixed, or somebody you call at your home fix, somebody you want to call at your office to come and fix that computer, right? So make sure when they turn it on, it's completely disconnected. Yeah, that's so either way you can take approach. When you're shutting down a computer, it's not connected to the network, so either approach. Now we have very few minutes, so you can still put the questions. So multi-factor authentication is one of the biggest takeaway I want you to take from it. I'll explain it. I'll be more focused. File encryption, I told you, location-based access is not that important. We'll talk about that. That's more of depending on the size of the business you have. Let's say if I'm in US, I would not want people to come to my portal and log in from UK or China, whichever. You know, if I know that all me and myself, my employees work from US, so that's. But multi-factor is one of the most important thing, other than those symptoms and everything. Yes, absolutely. So it's available. You go Google it, Google Authenticator and Microsoft Authenticator. And there are third-party availables, but Google Authenticator free, Microsoft Authenticator free. So it's what it means. It's the second form of authentication. So if you're using today, what I want to tell you, start using it multi-factor from now onwards. So when you accessing, I know it's tough then whenever you are using your Gmail account, and then it will prompt you to put your 6-digit character. But guess what? If it's not that important, leave it. But if you have your for business, if it's compromised, guess what? So you have to evaluate your risk. Is it really worth it taking a risk or not? Am I going to lose all my purchase order, sales invoice, and tax and all that, for example? And even do not use Gmail free account for your tax and audit and all that stuff. You got to be using G Suite or Microsoft paid version. It's $5 a month or $7 a month. Do not use free version for any of those services for the business. That's my advice. That's even I don't use it. I use all the paid subscription. So multi-factor you must have. So you got to have either to configure it to receive a call. That's option one, or you can have it to receive a text, or you can have an Authenticator app, which is the most secure, because you get a screen pop up. Hey, did you sign it? Approve or deny, that kind of thing. So if I know that if I'm signing into my Google, I will say yes, approve it, and I'll then sign in. After putting my username and password, there will be another form of authentication, means who you are and what do you have kind of thing. So who you are and what do you have. So you have this authentication and you prove yourself, your identity. So it's a one layer of adding a protection. And identity is your passport. So that's how it is. You got to make sure, and that also help you. I mean, in these all these symptoms I told you, because even let's say your password gets breached and compromised, right? If you have authentication, second form of authentication implemented, guess what? That user, when trying to put your username and password, you will get that pop-up on your phone and you will be surprised. I'm not signing in. Who is that? So at that point, you just deny it. So that's your point in time action. Go and change your password. So this is how you can protect, you know, by adopting this multi-factor and then taking all these steps where you can protect your data in the cloud, at rest, encryption of file. So yeah, and that's all. Anyone, any questions? I think we are pretty much close to the time, so I'll give you guys 2-3 minutes.
All right. So while we wait and see if anyone has any questions, I wanted to thank you so much for presenting this. I already use multi-factor authentication on some things, but I should definitely start using it on everything, considering how much, like I said, like it's definitely saved me before. Yep. So I appreciate that. So just so everyone knows, I'm going to link our Facebook and LinkedIn pages, as well as our YouTube page and our our website's video library in the chat. I'm going to paste that in just a moment. You can always review these webinars in our YouTube and our video library if you'd like to watch them again. And on Monday, we have 2 free webinars. We have a Qigong for stress management and immune system support at noon on Monday. And then at 2 o'clock on Monday, we have COVID-19 misunderstandings with the tax laws. So 2 really great topics. So I really hope I'll see you guys there. Let's see. Any comments in the chat? I'm seeing some positive affirmations. Great class. Thank you for your very informative presentation.